Into a bar, asked for a pint of Guinness, causes absolute chaos. Shark Hanlon is my first guest today. The exploits of Hewick have gone viral around the world, but we want to concentrate more on what this horse has done rather than what he's drunk. Shark, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Well, let's get that done with first. You've had to do a bit of firefighting this week. For those who haven't been following this story, after the great win in the American Grand National at Fire Hills in New Jersey, you walked your great horse Hewick into your local and he had a pint of Guinness. Little did you know that this would cause a furore of sorts. We can enjoy it again here on Racing TV. Now, how have you managed to play this up and down over the last few weeks?
Listen, there's a lot of people loved it. There's a few people there, 8 or 10 people that give out about it, and we won't talk about them people. Listen, them people are people that probably never worked a day in their life, and they have no interest in horses. They just want to be there to give out about something. But we had 700,000 views. My young lad does the social media for me at home, and we had 700,000 views that loved it. So they're the people we'll talk about.
Is this your son Paddy who does?
Sean
does the social media.
Yeah, if it was left to me, I couldn't turn it on. But he does all the social media for me at home. So, and he's doing a great job on it, and he's keeping people updated with everything. So, and I think it's very important now in this day and age to have that going ahead.
And was most of the traffic you got from that quite positive, quite charmed by that?
It was unreal. We had over 700,000 views. Now that's a lot of people, and they were all good views. So there was a few people that knocked it. Just the horse shouldn't have went into the pub and things like this. Listen, if I felt any danger, the horse wouldn't have been in the pub. But he's just a real relaxed horse, and for my own location at home, it was brilliant for it to be there.
And how is he now, Hewick, after what's been a busy but incredibly successful campaign, taking in Galway, after Sandown, of course, and then a wonderful race where he came down at the last, but he effectively won the race at Listowel, and then to America. Is he in great shape?
He is in great shape. I thought we didn't bring him home for about 10 days from America, and it was brilliant because it was 25, 30 degrees over there, and I decided to leave him over there, let him get his son on his back, get himself fully recovered, and he came home brilliant. So he did. As a matter of fact, he came home heavier than he went, and he gone. You know, so like it was great. We had somewhere to leave him over there and everything, and we enjoyed the whole thing over there. So we did, and the horse enjoyed it. So he did. He never turned a hair. After Listowel, we didn't do much with him. I gave him a week off after Listowel, and the plan was to go to America, win, lose or draw. In Listowel, he was going to America, because it was a thing I had in our head for the last couple of years. It was great to have a horse to do what he done, and it was a dream come true there when you see him jumping the second last and he taking it up, and John Gainford was absolutely brilliant on him. And the only place that he wiggled around a bit was at the last, but it's a funny fence, because you pass on the inside of that fence twice. And when the horse came around the bend, watch him come around the bend there now, when he came around the bend, he was usually going on the inside of the fence. The next thing he had to veer out. And just the horse himself, he's a very clever horse, and he thought he should have been going on the inside. And that was the only little wibble that he gave. But listen, it was great to go over there and do it. And in fairness, England, Ireland, what sport we had behind us. You see, they passed on the inside of that twice.
Just be careful when you run him in the Grand National, he doesn't try and jump the chair twice, if he's that clever.
But the sport we're after getting from everywhere. I was over at the sales last week, and all the English people were coming up and congratulating me. I couldn't believe we had so much sport over there.
We had more requests for us to show this race the next morning than we've ever had for any race before on this programme. People saying, please, 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 can we see the Shark winning the American Grand National?
It's great. Listen, it's great. People are great. People are great, and that's what racing is about. We're after having downturns and upturns. Everyone does, and in racing you get them as well. But this is a good story, and that's what people want to hear.
I know that we're going to talk about this much later in the show, but I need to ask you, this is a perfect example of a horse being enterprisingly campaigned. You've run him plenty. I know he was a cheap horse, but he's a very precious horse to you now.
Yeah.
You've run him plenty on what we would consider to be quickish ground, but he's a horse with Welsh Grand National winners and 4-mile chasers in his pedigree. It's not like he's bred to be a flat horse. Why can you do that with him and know that that's okay, and yet these people up the top of the Trainers' Championship, both sides of the Irish Sea, are afraid to run a horse on what's called good ground at one of our premier tracks?
I think with this horse anyway is that I know he needs good ground, right? But he's not a big horse. He's only 16 and a half. And it's easier to keep a smaller horse sound. None of us wants to break down a horse. So that's the last thing in the world any trainer wants to do. They want to hurt a horse. That's the first thing is in a trainer's mind. They don't want to hurt their horse. But this horse, it's a handy bit of a horse, and he wasn't a pint horse. He went there once or twice and fell, right? But he's a kind of a horse that when he needs good ground, and you can run a small horse more often on good ground than a big horse.
And that's because they're putting less pressure on their
legs, on their tendons.
On their tendons, yeah.
And like at the moment, there's probably a lot about Ascot yesterday and that, but like the trainer knows his horse, and when you know your horse, and you decide the night before, because whatever trainer it is, they don't sleep the night before if they think the ground is going to be too quick for their horse. I know, because I don't, and my horses wouldn't be in the same class as their horses, right? But they won't sleep well the night before. They'll be thinking about this. So it's not something that they're going to do on the morn. There's a bit of thought after going into it.
So you wouldn't consider yourself intrinsically more of a risk taker? You're not someone who rolls the dice more than your neighbour down the road, Willie Mullins, or your neighbour the other way? I'm with this horse it's different because he's not a big horse and he needs good ground. So probably he could have been an Ascot yesterday, you know, like that kind of thing. But we decided early in the year, we done out a plan early in the year for my horse, and I stuck with it. Now the next plan is you go to the Gold Cup. Nothing between now and the Gold Cup.
No, listen, he deserves a break. He's after having a great season, and he deserves a break. So he came back from America. When he came back from America, TJ took him back up to Naas, and he's out in the day and in at night, and he's been mined like a baby up there. So he is. So, and they're very good. TJ and the brother are very good to look after him when they're on holidays. And I just feel that he deserves 8 weeks off now, and that's, we'll say, 1st of January, right? And if I have to give him a run, I'm going to have to be hard on him to get a run into him in 8 weeks after. So, bar he come. Now, he's a horse he's a very bad crib biter, right? And they nearly keep themselves, even when he's out in the field, he could take the top of a stake and crib bite it. But he's happy doing it. And I never tried to stop him. Some trainers there, they'd be putting yokes on their neck, all bull, you know, like, a horse is happy doing it. What they do in their own time is their own business.
So it's a nervous affliction. It's like somebody biting their nails all the time, compulsively. So a horse is chewing and chewing and chewing against any surface, any bit of wood. Yeah,
but like we have him there, and my young lad now, Paddy, he looks after him a lot.
Do you think that's why you got him so cheap in the first place? Because people couldn't sell him because he was a crib biter?
No, I don't think it was mentioned on the day.
Funny that.
You know, and just the reason I got him so cheap, which was probably in our own local, like I'm only 5 minutes from the sales company, and I'd say that on the day the trade wasn't good, and I got to buy him cheap. I would never have bought him. I went down to buy another horse at the time. And the other horse wasn't there, and I was walking out the bottom gate coming home, and I met him coming in, and something caught my eye, and went home, got the dinner, halfway during the dinner, got up, left, went back to buy the horse, and I didn't even know what he was by. I didn't know what. I knew nothing about him. I just liked what I saw.
And at 800 quid, it's eight. Yeah. I suppose it doesn't matter too much as long as you like the model. You know you can do something with it. Is this your stockman's background that informs that? Because you are from a family of farmers, of dairy farmers.
I was a cattle dealer. My grandfather was a cattle dealer. My father was a cattle dealer. And
but you know what a good animal's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully. It's working anyway. It's working. They say that if you can judge a bullock, you can judge a horse. I don't know.
Is it true?
I don't know. It's working though. It's working, and when it's working, I'm happy.
How do you judge a bullock?
Listen, a bullock is different than a horse, really. But a horse, in my opinion, a horse can have to walk. If you can't walk, you can't run. Okay. And that's for me when I'm buying a horse. Some people say, I won't buy a horse turned in, I won't buy a horse turned out. I don't mind a horse turned out a bit because he's not going for sale again if I'm going to train them. And you can buy him at half the price. You know, but Hewick is straight as a die, lovely straight horse. Not over big. I bought his brother last week at the sales.
Okay, I bet you maybe have to give a little more for him.
25 from him. I can't believe I extended to that. But listen,
how did you get away with only having to give 25 for him?
He's not over big.
Okay,
he's a lovely horse and great walking horse.
Are we now? Take this the right way, but are we getting sizist? Are we anti-small horses?
No, in Ireland and England, they love this big chasing horse.
That's what I mean.
They love their big...
Are we overvaluing big horses?
Well, I tell you, just my opinion is that the big horses are great, right, and they look lovely. But, like, it was a bit like Ascot yesterday. They're big horses, and you won't chance them on goodish ground.
Okay.
Right? Which my horse... you could chance him any day on that kind of ground. A
lot of money in good ground in Cheltenham, Aintree, possibly Punchestown, all the way through the summer in Ireland. You mentioned Listowel.
Listowel, Galway. Like, you're going to have goodish ground. Like, I've never went to Cheltenham hardly that was bottomless. Do you know that it was really suitable for a heavy ground horse? But all the trainers will run the horse in Cheltenham.
Okay. So did you always find, when you started getting involved in the racehorses with George Mullins, wasn't it, initially?
Yeah, it was with Tony at the start.
Yeah. I mean, did you always get a little bit more of a buzz out of that than you did out of the cattle dealing?
You would. A winner is a great thing. A winner is a great thing. And no matter who you are or where you are, a winner, I know, should be celebrated, and we love celebrating.
So what was the first winner that really got the blood pumping, that got you celebrating, that got you thinking, right, I'm actually going to do this, train them, make my life out of this?
I had a horse for Barry Connell, one of my first horse, Western Leader, and I have no doubt in saying about he was the best horse I ever trained. And Barry rode a couple of bumper winners on him, and we went hurling him, and he was 25 lengths in front one day in Liverpool, and he got broke down, he got hurted. But we brought him home, we minded him, I got him back to the track, he won, and then we retired him. You know, because at the time there was a bit of a hullabaloo about it, he should have been put down. I said no, I didn't want him put down, because I said that at the time he was my star, and it was an awful kick to get when he broke down, but he was kept on view, he was well minded, and we got him back to the track, and I retired him. But he was probably one of the best horses I ever trained, and it was the biggest kick I ever got the day he got hurted, you know. But listen, you move on. You have to move on and try and get the next star. And then we had Hidden Cyclone, you know, we had Luska Lad, we had Chimie, and they're all only cheap horses, $8,000, $7,000, you know. Any horse that I have, I don't believe in giving an awful lot for horses, because I can't take on, during the winter, I can't take on the William Mullins or the Paul Nichols, because I haven't got the power behind me to do it, right? So we have to think, right, John, what are you going to do? So I kind of make myself a summer trainer, and during the winter I have me 15 or 20 pointers to sell. Mm-hmm. So every pint, like Hewick would have been sold if he was in Boris one day, I thought he couldn't get beaten, and he slipped going down the back and pulled up. If he had to win that day, he probably would have made 50 grand, and he would have been sold. So I was very lucky that day that he fell, you know. But what I do is I sell plenty of pint horses there, and I sold Posh Trish, plenty of good horses that went on and won lots of races for English people and Irish people. And it's a business, and for me to keep my business going, I have to have pointers to sell, because training horses, there's no money in training horses. I'm telling you, with me, there's no money in training horses, because we probably don't charge. We don't charge like the rest of them, right? We'd be our cost is the same height as everyone else, right? but we wouldn't be charging as much as the bigger trainers.
So you try and make your money trading, and
Yes.
you try and train not quite at cost, but not much fat on the bone.
At cost.
Really?
At cost, yeah. We'd have nothing, like with the feed, with everything going off, staff, everything is after getting dearer. And I'd be very happy if I could break even training. And I can't understand, I find it very hard to understand the smaller trainers, you know, with 5 and 6 horses there. Like, they must be doing it for a hobby more than a living, because I know if I wasn't trading, I wouldn't be in this game.
And if you weren't trading and you weren't training,
Yeah.
what would you be doing?
Probably have to draw the doll, I'd say, because we're not fit for anything else.
What would you like to be doing? If it wasn't horses, what would you have loved to do?
Listen,
when you were in school, did you think about
Never thought about training horses. I was a cattle dealer, and I couldn't wait to leave school, because I left school when I was 13 to go buy cattle and sell cattle. And at that time, my father, they were shipping cattle out of Ireland, and there was nothing else in my head, only cattle. And then the foot and mouth came in, and the thing had slowed down. I went off to drive for George Mullins, and probably I met a great people. I went to drive for George Mullins. I spent driving for George for about a year and a half, and I was in the English yards, and I met a lot of the English trainers, and they're great people. You know, they're great people. And I remember being below Martin Pipes one day, and the horses were coming down out of the lorry, and he said, "Did you pick a nice one?" They were after buying them off of Costello's in Clare. And I picked out a horse, and I said, "I like that horse there." And I remember him coming to me in Cheltenham 2 years later, and "Come here," he says, "that's the horse." And he was after winning, I forget what horse it was, but he was after winning in Cheltenham. He said, "That's the horse you picked out," he said. So, you know, I just, listen, you kind of have it or haven't it, and I'm lucky enough, I think, that it's working well for me.
And in terms of how you've restructured a little bit, you're talking about you've become a summer trainer. You did get pretty big at one point, didn't you? You did have a lot of horses. Were you trying at that point to compete with to keep up with the Joneses?
Yeah,
to try and
but just it's gone so big, like Willie and Fairjuice to Willie and Gordon and Henry and, you know, and Joseph, like, they have the horses, they have the people to buy the horses, to give the money. Like,
did you ever have that or not?
Never.
Did you ever have a sniff of it? Did anyone come in and say, "There you go, Shark. Here's a few $100,000. Go buy me some nice ones"?
Never. I bought a horse this week. As a matter of fact, I gave more than I ever give for any horse. But
was it like a lot?
It was a lot of money, right? But
like into the sort of 2s, 3s, 4s.
Yes, right. And he's for an English national, so he is. But I've usually, like, even today, before I left home, I saw the horse yesterday. Lads came in, listen, we have 10 grand to spend there. You know, and a lot of the horses I'd have would be costing 10 grand. And like, it's affordable for people to do that. I'm setting up a new syndicate at the moment there now, right? I have 2 nice horses rated in the Ray, he's on the flat. And I'm setting up a new syndicate, John Hanlon Race, and we're going to just start with it small, £1,000 training fees, the whole lot for the year for people. And it'd be a nice way to get people into racing. Like, we have to keep people in racing. If we don't keep people in racing, it's lovely having the big lads, and they don't, half the time they won't go racing. But for Irish racing, for English racing, that syndicate with 30 people in the ring, and they have a winner. That is a big, big thing. So it is. And I'm going to try it now, and I'm starting it off next week, getting 2 horses, £1,000, all training fees, everything covered for the week, for the year, right? So you put up your £1,000 and you have no more cost, which I think it'll work, because, like, for Christmas presents or for whatever. But I think in racing we need to get more people back involved, so that when you go to some of these tracks and see 100 people there racing, like, you're at the race in England, and I think you agree with what I'm saying. We need to get more syndicates together and have a bit of atmosphere at the races. The atmosphere has gone out of the races.
I mean, first of all, you've just delivered the most elegantly crowbarred in plug for any syndicate ever on this programme, but is very plausible. Secondly, where I really agree with you is that where I think racecourses are missing an opportunity is that these big syndicates,
yes,
whether they're small shares, smaller shares, micro shares, whatever they are, they're a captive audience to actually get people to go to the races and enjoy the experience.
We need to get people back racing.
The racecourses say, well, we can't give away 500 tickets for free, but actually they need to look at the bigger picture. You've potentially got a big audience there of people who have minuscule shares in horses that could actually be turning up to the sports and spending money.
Probably 75% of the people that are racing it, there's 75% of people not going racing. There's 25 of the owners, 20% of the owners that go racing. One lad with a horse. You go racing there tomorrow morning, wherever it is, and you look into the ring, you'll see jockeys standing by themselves with the trainer or whatever, and that's awful. Like, we need to get more people back into this game.
To actually go physically
to go for it. And, like, I see my house at home. Yesterday morning, there was 30 owners there, right? They go in to get a cup of tea. They all start meeting each other, right? And before they left, they were changing numbers, and now they're friends. And that's what we need. We need to get that into the racetracks in England, in Ireland. We have to get more people involved. If we don't, like, it's great to have these big owners coming and win the races, right? But 9 times out of 10, they mightn't even be there. Like, it's just, it's something that I don't know how it's going to work, right? But I'm going to try and start this, that we get a syndicate together and keep it going, And I'm hoping that'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you know what I mean?
And you know what? If you ask me really nicely, I'll give you Shark Hanlon's number, more from the great man, together with Megan Nichols and David Yates, as we look back on all the week's news. There's plenty of it right after this.
Subscribe to Racing TV's YouTube channel now to watch more great races like this.